Before we continue with the rest of the video, we could use your help. Click that like button to help spread the word about watchJojo, and also be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss our future videos. This photographer was documenting homeless people when she got a life-changing surprise. The young woman walks through the busy streets, snapping photographs of people that the world seems to have forgotten. For 10 years, she's captured their lost and lonely faces, their gaunt frames, and their makeshift homes. As she approaches an emaciated man standing in the street, a passerby tells her not to bother, that he'll stand there all day long. But as she regards his face, she sees something hauntingly familiar and knows she has to try. When Diana Kim was a child on the island of Maui, Hawaii, her father owned a photography studio. What's more, she used to help him by breaking open disposable cameras to get the films out for processing. By the time she was 8 years old, Kim's parents had separated, and her relationship with her father had become strained. Nevertheless, the love of photography he had instilled in her remained throughout her teenage years. In 2003, Kim began studying at the University of Hawaii. Looking for inspiration in her first photo essay, she decided to focus on the homeless people she saw around her. Kim had moved around a lot with her mother and spent much of her youth flitting between friends' and relatives' homes. Sometimes she'd even resorted to sleeping in cars or in parks. Because of these experiences, she saw herself in the people she met on the streets. Having always longed for a more stable home, she identified with those lacking a place to call their own. That first photo essay began a passion that would last more than 10 years. Over the years, she snapped many photos of people living on the streets of Honolulu, Hawaii, but nothing could have prepared her for what was to come. At some point in 2012, Kim received an upsetting call from her grandmother. Her father was ill. She was told that there was something wrong with his mind. People had begun to complain about his appearance in the apartment building where he lived. When his lease ran out, it was not renewed, and he was evicted from his home. By the time Kim returned from her law fellowship in Washington, D.C., her father had joined the many homeless people living rough on the streets of Honolulu. Immediately, she set out looking for him, and what she found would break her heart. Eventually, she discovered him. He was standing at a busy intersection, staring but seemingly not seeing. She shouted out his name, but he didn't react. Kim's father had become a shell of his former self. Emaciated and suffering from schizophrenia, he didn't recognize the daughter he had helped raise. Although some of her friends and family members advised her to walk away, Kim found a different way of coping with the traumatic situation. Just as she'd been doing for the last decade, she turned to her photography to document the pain she saw in front of her. Only this time, her own father was the one in the lens. Photographing my father actually began as a mechanism of protecting myself at first, she told NBC Asian America. I'd raise my camera phone in front of me, almost as if that barrier would help keep me together. Because Kim was unable to interact with her father, she used her photography as a kind of therapy. Snapping images allowed her to document the suffering he was going through and gave her an opportunity to process her feelings. Sometimes when she visited him, she found herself unable to look directly at him, resulting in abstract images of shoes and feet. Other days, she wouldn't be able to find him at all, spending hours searching in vain. Kim began to suspect that her father would die on the streets. Then, in 2014, her father had a heart attack and was taken to hospital, an event that ironically saved his life. While there, he began a treatment plan for his mental illness, and slowly the man that Kim had known and loved began to return. Today, she's helping her father on the road to recovery, supporting him in his bid to become a taxi driver. She's also released a book called The Homeless Paradise, which documents her experiences with her father and other people living on the streets in Hawaii. Although every day is still a struggle, Kim is full of hope for her father's future. There's no failure unless you give up, she said, and he never gave up, and I haven't given up on him. Please don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell to receive everything that's new.